There is a point where effort doesn't just soften, it becomes unnecessary. Not because life has settled into clarity, not because uncertainty has disappeared, but because you stop trying to shape experience into something other than what it already is. This episode is about that point, about what happens when life is allowed to be what it is, without correction, without improvement, without needing to move anywhere else. Earlier in this journey, there was often a sense that something needed to happen, something needed to open, something needed to change, something needed to resolve. That sense wasn't wrong. It helped create movement when awareness was still stabilizing. But over time, that forward pull begins to relax. Not because it's been satisfied, but because it's no longer required. Letting life be what it is doesn't arrive as a decision. You don't choose it. It happens quietly, in the background, as resistance fades. Resistance was rarely loud. It didn't always feel like struggle. Often, it felt like subtle tension, a slight leaning away from the moment, a quiet sense that something else should be happening, an unspoken comparison between what is and what you imagined might be better. You may notice now that those comparisons happen less, not because you corrected them, but because they don't hold the same authority. They arise and they pass, and life continues untouched. Letting life be what it is doesn't mean liking everything. It doesn't mean approving of every circumstance. It means you stop requiring life to justify itself before you live it. Earlier, discomfort often carried an extra layer, a sense that it shouldn't be there, that it needed explanation, that it was in the way. Now, discomfort can simply be discomfort, a sensation, a mood, a moment, not an interruption. This doesn't make discomfort pleasant. It makes it workable. Without resistance, it doesn't linger as long. Without judgment, it doesn't escalate. It moves when it moves. Letting life be what it is also changes how pleasure is experienced. Pleasure doesn't need to be held on to. You don't try to extend it. You don't worry about losing it. It's felt fully, and when it fades, nothing is wrong. Earlier, there may have been a tendency to chase good moments or avoid difficult ones. Now both are allowed. Neither defines the day. This stage doesn't bring emotional neutrality. It brings emotional permission. Everything is allowed to pass through without becoming a project. Letting life be what it is also shifts how you relate to thought. Thoughts still appear. Ideas still form. But they don't demand obedience. They're noticed as movement, not instruction. Earlier, thought often felt like the center of experience. Now, it's one element among many. Useful when needed, quiet when not. You may notice that you don't argue with your mind as much. You don't try to silence it. You don't correct it. You let it do what it does, and you stay with what's happening underneath. This brings a different kind of calm. Not the calm of control, the calm of allowance. Letting life be what it is also changes how you experience choice. Choices still exist. Decisions still matter. But they're not loaded with identity. You choose. You act. You adjust if needed. There's less pressure to get it right. Earlier, choices often carried weight. They felt like turning points. Now, choices feel proportional. Important, but not defining. This proportionality is stabilizing. You're no longer living as if every decision determines who you are. You're living as someone who can respond again if needed. Letting life be what it is also affects how you relate to time. Time doesn't feel like something to manage. You don't try to stay ahead of it. You don't resist its movement. Moments pass. You move with them. Earlier, there may have been a constant sense of being slightly behind or ahead. Now, time feels less personal. It moves, and you're in it. This stage often brings a surprising ease with not knowing. Not knowing what's next. Not knowing how something will turn out. Not knowing how you'll feel tomorrow. Earlier, not knowing felt uncomfortable. Something to fix. Now, it's simply part of the landscape. You don't wait for certainty to act. You act, and life responds. Letting life be what it is also means letting yourself be what you are. You don't need to define yourself. You don't need to stabilize an identity. You don't need to explain your changes. You're allowed to be inconsistent. You're allowed to evolve. Earlier, there may have been a desire to understand who you had become. Now, that question feels unnecessary. You're here. That's enough information. This doesn't mean you stop reflecting. Reflection still happens, but it doesn't dominate. It informs, and then it releases. Letting life be what it is also changes how you relate to others. You don't try to manage their reactions. You don't try to control how you're seen. You speak honestly and allow the rest to unfold. This doesn't eliminate misunderstanding, but misunderstanding doesn't linger as long. It doesn't become a story about you. It's addressed or it passes. Connection becomes simpler. Not easier, simpler. There's less performance, less positioning, less effort to be understood. Letting life be what it is also means letting relationships exist without needing them to be defined. Some connections deepen, some remain light, some drift. You don't force alignment. You allow movement. This can feel unfamiliar if you were used to holding things together. But there's relief in not being responsible for everything. Another quiet shift is how silence feels. Silence no longer feels empty. It feels sufficient. You don't rush to fill it. You let it be. This stage doesn't feel like progress. It feels like honesty. You're no longer pretending that life should be different than it is. Letting life be what it is also affects how you relate to effort. Effort is applied where it belongs, to action, not inwardly, not toward managing experience. You stop trying to improve the moment. You live it. This doesn't make you passive. It makes you responsive. You act when action is needed. You rest when it isn't. You don't force either. Earlier, there may have been a sense that awareness needed to be protected, maintained, preserved. Now, awareness isn't something you hold. It's what remains when nothing is being defended. Letting life be what it is also softens the need for meaning. Meaning still appears, but it's not required. Life doesn't need interpretation to be lived fully. This stage often goes unnoticed. There's no marker, no milestone. Just a quiet recognition, over time, that you're no longer bracing against experience. You may notice that you don't talk about awareness as much, not because it's gone, but because it's no longer separate. It doesn't need to be named. Letting life be what it is doesn't remove challenge. Challenges still arise, but they're met directly, without commentary, without resistance. This is where trust becomes embodied. Not trust that things will work out, trust that you can meet what arises. And that trust doesn't announce itself. It's lived. You don't need to remember this. You don't need to apply it. If it resonates, you'll notice it in your own moments. If it doesn't, nothing is missing. Life doesn't need permission to unfold, and you don't need permission to live it. If any of this feels familiar, you don't need to hold on to it. But if you'd like to stay connected, you're welcome to. Liking the video helps it reach others who may be quietly realizing that life doesn't need correction. And if these reflections support you as you allow experience to be what it is, you can subscribe, not to follow a path, but to keep the door open. And if someone you care about has been struggling against life and feels tired of the effort, you're welcome to share this with them. Only if it feels natural. Sometimes the deepest ease comes from letting life be what it is.